All right, is everybody ready? Some people are still chatting. We'll have more chatting time in a few minutes. Let's start over with Helen. I'm going to call on you first. And if you could introduce yourself and tell your favorite, okay, are we losing people up there? Okay. Tell your favorite summer fruit or vegetable. And those of you who needed to know who your name was, so you're still looking at yourself, thank you. Right. Okay. Helen.
My name's Helen Kadish. I'm coming over from Metro Caring, and I love blueberries.
I'm Tim Dolan from Chaffa, and I got to go with watermelon.
Shoot, Tim stole mine. I was going to do watermelon as well, probably some of you too. I'm Erin Ling, and I'm with the Colorado Fresh Food Financing Fund in Puma.
I'm Gabe Disbrow with Lever Supermarkets, and I'm a Rainier Cherry.
I'm Lauren with Energy Outreach Colorado, and my favorite would probably be strawberry.
Hi, Mark Kling with the Family Resource Center Association. I'm also a fan of cherries.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Erin Ulrich. I am now with the Blueprint to End Hunger. I'm on day 7. So clearly I know exactly where we're going and what we're doing. Looking forward to learning from all of you during this meeting today. And my favorite summer fruit or vegetable is going to have to be corn. And my husband doesn't like it. So
And we're going to come back and have Erin tell us a little bit more about herself and what she's up to. Okay.
Hi, I'm Khadijah Haynes, and I'm one of the consultants facilitating for you today. And I like whatever fruit or vegetable is in front of me.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Willard. Like Khadijah, helping out with the facilitation this morning. My favorite summer garden item is eggplant. And I know very few other people who love eggplant in the way that I love eggplant. So I look forward to August every year, and people who are growing it, I will take it if you'd like to share.
My name is Gordon Duvall. I'm a community research liaison, and my favorite fruit would be peaches.
Hey, Kevin Warner with Trailhead Institute, and I'll be helping facilitate a little bit on the phone today. Mine is also peaches.
Hi, my name is Andrew Stricker, also with Trailhead Institute, and I would go with raspberries.
I'm Lindsay Turner with Hunger Free Colorado, and I have to go with watermelon. Hi, everyone. Alexis Waitman with the Colorado Health Foundation. I'm going to go watermelon and corn. So also really love growing lots of basil in my garden and making lots of pesto.
Hi, I'm Lynette Namba. I'm with Kaiser Permanente, and I love peaches and corn.
Hi, Carmen Martin with Kaiser, and I love my husband's homegrown tomatoes.
Hello, my name is Leah Sullivan. I'm with the Colorado Department
of Human Services. My name is Leah Sullivan, in case y'all didn't hear that. Sorry. Oh goodness, there's so many. Okay, zucchini and squash. Like combined together, sauteed in the summer, it's so perfect.
And my name is Kee Powell, and I am with the Colorado Department of Human Services as well, and I would say mango.
I am Wendy Peters Muschetti, Livewell, Colorado, and I would say my raspberry.
And I'm Donna Garnett, Montbello Organizing Committee, and my favorite, I cannot separate them, would be zucchini and fresh grown tomatoes. So let's go to the phone. All right, Dana.
Hi, my name is Dana Wood. I'm with Garfield County Public Health. This is the first time I'm joining this group. My favorite fruit is raspberry.
But you're going to have to make it because I'm on the way.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, just leave them.
Okay, what was your favorite, Dana?
Raspberries.
Perfect. Okay, H. Hoffman.
Heidi. Good morning, everybody. This is Heidi Hoffman with the WIC program. I'd have to say peaches, but specifically Palisade peaches are my favorite.
Juanita?
Can you hear me?
Okay, folks now we can, yes.
Okay, sorry. Good morning, everybody. Juanita Montoya with Servicios de la Raza. And I love all kinds of fruit, but I'm partial to cherries.
Great. Maddie?
Hi, everyone. Maddie Killing from the American Heart Association. I would agree. Palisade peaches are amazing, and I want some right now.
Okay, Khalid?
Hi, my name is Khalid Morris, Family Tree Market. My favorite fruit, I guess I'm a pineapple strawberry person, so it's hard to pick between those two.
All right. Good morning, Ruben.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Ruben Gregory at Children's Hospital, Colorado, and I would have to say ground cherries from my garden are my favorite.
Okay, I don't know the phone numbers. I'll just call out the last four numbers. Oh, good. That looks like 1842.
Yeah, hi, this is Maddie Keating. Sorry I can't make it in person today. Gosh, I love all the fruits and vegetables. I'd have to go with blueberries.
Great. 5938.
Stephanie Salazar Rodriguez, Mile High Health Alliance, and I would say homegrown tomatoes and Rocky Ford melons.
Okay, 0206.
Good morning. This is Amy Pisani with the Food Bank for Larimer County, and I'm definitely going to go with Palisade peaches.
Great. I think we're going to put in a lot of orders this year. Okay, 2432.
Yeah, that's Justin Voss calling in from Chaffa, calling in to prevent you all exposure to my germs today. I would have to go with homegrown tomatoes as well, Team Tomato.
Good. Well, we hope you feel better. Then 0379.
Hear me?
Now we can.
Hi. Okay, sorry. Julie Mordecai and Nectarines, Rio Grande Farm Park.
Great. Well, we're mostly all in love with fruits today. Anybody else on the phone that we skipped? Great. So I asked Erin to please spend a little bit of time telling us, what is this, your 8th day on the job now, 7th, something like that, 7th. So if you would maybe tell us a little more about yourself and what you've been up to so far and what you have in mind. And let's just first, we just had someone come in. If you could tell us your name and your favorite summer fruit or vegetable.
My name is Michelle Ortiz. Watermelon is my favorite summer fruit.
Okay. Anybody else on the, okay. All right, Erin. Jeff.
Jeff, right across the street from you.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. I don't see you up there. Jess, who are you?
I'm Jeff Harper with Metro Caring, and my favorite is also watermelon.
Very good. All right, Erin, it's all yours.
All right, good morning. Thank you. So obviously I don't have a whole lot to share in terms of exactly what our direction is going to look like. That's what I'm going to be spending my first few weeks doing, is kind of sitting down with all of the governing council members, the work group co-chairs, as well as all of the consultants who have been working on this to date, just to kind of identify where we've been and where they see us going. And then also I'll be sending out, you'll get an email from me before the end of the week, a survey to all of the work group members and previous steering committee members who are not in those groups of people, just to hear your thoughts on our future direction. So just as a quick introduction, my name is Erin Ulrich. I am coming from the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. So I was there for about 5 years. I ran the nutrition services branch
and the WIC program for 3 of those 5 years, and then worked as the deputy and interim director for the Prevention Services Division, which houses a number of different programs kind of across the spectrum of prevention. So suicide prevention, family planning, chronic disease, maternal and child health, nutrition, so the WIC program. So again, a really broad array of services. So I like to think of myself as kind of a systems thinker. That said, I also spent 10 years prior to going to CDPHE at the community level, not in Colorado, but internationally. So I primarily worked in Haiti, doing programs across the country there, and then worked on some programs in Honduras and Peru as well. So, and then prior to that, I was an actuary, so that obviously ties in. But I do like spreadsheets and budgets, so I guess that's a good product of that. So I'm really excited to be here. To me, it's a great culmination of kind of all of that experience. I have some expertise in food systems in the food world. I definitely do not have it all. And I'm really excited about kind of being able to use the skills of connecting with people and bringing us all together to think about how we can make change in this space. I'm very well aware that me as one person will not make change in this space by myself. So again, just really looking forward to working with all of the work groups that have been set up, thinking about what other structures we need in place, particularly for the Governing Council and Trailhead and the Colorado Health Foundation. So we'll be spending a lot of time kind of building out what that all looks like so that we have the infrastructure to be able to move forward. I will pass out business cards, and also when I send an email, I had one of the Governing Council members yesterday was like, I don't know what your email is. Oh, that's probably a little detail. So I'll get contact information to everyone. Again, you'll be getting a survey to provide kind of some more formal input and feedback, but please feel free to reach out anytime. My door, although I don't know where that is yet, is always open, and I really do want to hear from all of you as much as possible. So I am around and available, and again, I'm looking forward to learning from you all today.
My own experience is Erin's very easy to talk to, and she's a really good listener. So I think we look forward to more conversations. Thank you. So the next item on our agenda today is Wendy, and you're going to tell us what you're going to talk about.
Hey, do you mind if I steal this? Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. I don't need to. I'm usually loud enough just without any. Oh, perfect, Kevin, thank you. Okay, so this is Wendy from Live Well Talkin', for those of you on the phone. And I had asked Donna if I could just slip in a little update on a project that we have been working on with the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council, because it's very relevant to the proposed work plan that we're going to look at today. So just sort of in that spirit of saying, let's keep talking about the work that's sort of already, happening, that we are prioritizing the work plan, I thought this would be a good update to share. Also, Heidi Hoffman on the phone with CDPHE WIC has been working on this as well. So Heidi, please just jump in at any point with anything you want to share. And Heidi, I don't know if you've seen this version yet, so surprise. Hope you like it. It's not finished, so don't worry. So what we're going to look through is a draft what we call an issue brief. So the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council is a governor-appointed, multi-sector, highly collaborative, basically a governor's board or commission aimed to focus on how we improve access to healthy food for Coloradans by leveraging Colorado's local agricultural economies. It was created actually through a Live Well sponsored bill way back in 2010. And its charge really is to advise state agencies on food systems issues. I'm looking around really to make sure I'm not missing anyone who has participated on COSAC. I don't think so, anyone on the phone, but please jump in if you have. And just a little bit of an update on COSAC is what we call it. I know it's not such a great acronym. We had the bill signing on Friday. We floated another bill this session to combine COSAC with the State Farm to School Task Force, which is another governor-appointed body. And I think 3 to 4 state agencies are actually mandated to sit on each of those, which we thought was a little bit inefficient. And both the Farm to School Task Force and COSAC are really looking at broad food systems issues. So we're combining those two and moving them to a permanent home in CSU. And we got funding for a full-time food systems manager
to support the work of these boards and commissions, and to specifically look at farm to institution work, connecting federal food assistance programs to Colorado agriculture, and the implementation of the other blueprint, which is the blueprint of food and agriculture that came out about 1.5 years ago. So what COSAC does in the meantime is what we've been doing for several years is these issue briefs. So we pick specific issues and we do kind of deep dives on issues that bring together Colorado agriculture and healthy food access. We've done a whole slew of these if you're ever interested. It's sort of really what kicked off SNAP incentives at direct markets. In 2012, we did a specific issue brief on that issue, well before there was a Finney grant or Double Up Food Bucks. So the one issue that came up that, and Sandy Stenmark I know isn't here, but Sandy Stenmark, Dr. Sandy Stenmark, who many of you know, sits on COSAC with me as well, has been really involved in this, both blueprint processes, the blueprint of food and agriculture and the blueprint to end hunger. So Sandy and I, about a year ago, convened a small working group to try to identify issues that we thought really came out of both blueprints, or at that point we saw were sort of being identified in both blueprints, to say, what are some issues that we can advance that would move recommendations forward out of both of these blueprint processes that we thought were coming. And the idea we landed pretty quickly on was around SNAP and WIC authorized sites in the state of Colorado. So this issue brief, behind this, by the way, is like about a 30-page white paper, which is done if you want the full white paper. There's a website I can share, or just ask me for it. We treat that white paper sort of like as the reference document. Like, we wrote it and read it. I don't expect a lot of people to do that, but you're welcome to. So we wanted to do a really pretty 4-page aimed at just as state agencies. And the whole point of this is to identify really recommendations around 2 areas. And one is recommendations around increasing the number of types, the number of sites that just simply are authorized to accept SNAP and WIC benefits in the state of Colorado. And the second area is then to basically improve the food environments of those sites that do accept SNAP and WIC, and sort of to diversify the type of sites that can be authorized to accept SNAP and WIC. So that's the whole point of this, is to kind of frame up why this is an issue and then identify recommendations for state agencies to act on that. So Heidi Hoffman, do you have anything to add to that?
I think you did a really good job, and I want to commend you, Wendy, for you're so good at talking about really huge issues and boiling them down to something that is meaningful, and I appreciate that. I would second what you said, that this is a topic that comes up a lot with WIC. You know, why isn't WIC in more stores like SNAP? And I think that this committee did a really good job of looking at their very different programs that are regulated completely differently. And so where there are similarities, where there are differences, and identifying some potential places where both WIC and SNAP could work to, mostly WIC, I guess, but could work on either at a state level, but some of this is out of our purview, and so where we could advocate potentially with the partners in the room right now for potential changes or workarounds or that sort of thing. So I just saw this version this morning. I think it's beautiful, and I appreciate your work and appreciate the Palisade peach on the front page. But I look forward to having some more conversations with this group and with partners in this group about how and if to move forward on some of the recommendations. So I just wanted to say thank you for including us in the discussion.
Absolutely. It's all about supporting the good work that CDHS and CDPHE and USDA-FNS honestly are already doing. And to Heidi's point, this one specifically is geared just towards state agencies because that is our charge at COSAC, is to primarily recommend strategies to the state. We do have another set of recommendations that are more for advocacy organizations, such as a lot of us in this room. All that information is in the full white paper. So Kevin, do you mind just kind of scrolling through this? This is only 4 pages. And again, it's not done. We just revealed this to COSAC yesterday. We had a COSAC meeting yesterday. So we're doing some final edits right now. So hopefully it'll be done in like a week or 2. So basically what it just does is it kind of orients you, and the white paper does this a lot more than just orienting you. Like, what is the universe we're talking about? Who is it? What regulatory agencies are involved with SNAP and WIC? How do you get authorized for SNAP or WIC as a retail or food vendor? Who in Colorado already is authorized? right? Who can be in Colorado and who specifically is that? And then how do you get authorized to accept SNAP or WIC? And then there's a lot of maps and things like that in the full white paper about where SNAP and WIC authorized sites are located and how that overlays with WIC eligibility, with poverty rates, not WIC, with poverty rates and with SNAP eligibility. So just to kind of paint the picture of what is the universe we're talking about, since as Heidi pointed out, there's a lot of talk about where you can use your SNAP benefits and where you can use your WIC benefits. So we kind of wanted to lay out some of the reality and where there's potential movement. So, and then it ends with these recommendations. And then the last thing I'll say is about, since COSAC already has the two primary state agencies involved and key decision makers from those agencies, from CDHS and CDPHE, who have been working with us this entire time, those members are now, it's really their wish and responsibility to move forward with these recommendations. So as advocates and others, if there's anything here that you're interested in, we're absolutely happy to talk about that. CDHS and CDPHE will now be moving this through their leadership to talk about, okay, and kind of prioritize. Like, we obviously can't move on every single one of these right away. What seems most reasonable now? So that was kind of a lot. Even though Heidi said I'm good at boiling things down, that was a lot of talking. Are there any questions or questions about what's in here, how to use it?
You gonna send this out to the group
when it's done? Absolutely. Or yes, I can send it out. Do you mind if I wait till it's finalized?
Oh, of course.
Not that I don't want 40 people editing this, but I don't actually. So the content has been really approved by the state agencies involved, so we can't play with the content anyway. Yeah, absolutely. So I'd give us another week or two, and then I can send this out with the link to the full white paper as well. And then I would say if there's anything in there that's really of interest, I would reach out to me, or I can connect you to the appropriate COSAC member just to say, anyway, we can support you. How are you moving forward with this?
Cool. Other questions for Wendy? Comments? Thank you, and thank you to the people who've done all this work. We appreciate it. Okay, next thing on the agenda is a piece that is in your packet. Megan Bradley took on the task of following up on our last meeting discussion about, what really constitutes participation and membership in this particular work group 2-3. That sort of came on the heels of recognition that there were some people that were thinking that the priorities set way back in December were the priorities of this group. And in fact, there were very few people who were at the meeting who had attended the December meeting. And so there was a lot of confusion about where did these priorities come from, and when do we say that priorities or whatever work we're doing is set in stone and it's not up for change, and so on and so forth. Megan is actually sick today and is on her way to see her doctor. So we have a draft, and I know there were several people that provided input, and you can actually see some of their comments on the side here. So I think if you can take a few minutes and look at this, we won't make any sort of decision today because Megan's not here, and she's really facilitating this work and this piece of our work. But comments, thoughts, what are your reactions to this? So if you haven't had a minute to look at it, we'll have a moment of silence while you do that.
Okay, is anyone who replied to Megan or who helped work on this in the room or on the phone? Oh,
I'm on the phone.
Who is speaking, please?
Julie Mordecai, but I'm really not feeling well either, so I'd prefer not to have to make more comments. So,
Okay, great.
I'm home with the migraine.
Oh, we're sorry. Okay, does anybody have thoughts? I saw a couple of you making notes or, any comments, thoughts you'd like for the subcommittee to take back and think about?
This is Dana Wood in Garfield County. I just typed a note in, but just something for the group to maybe consider. If you do want community members to participate, you might look at changing the time of day that the meeting's at.
Great. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Gordon Duvall. I had a question around the voting members. On this document, it says there's 15 voting members. I kind of counted more than 20 of us around the table and probably 8 on the phone. What constitutes a voting member, and how will we make that decision?
Right now, there's nothing that distinguishes that. Anybody who shows up at a meeting votes on whatever gets put forth if there's a vote required on that particular day. There were some people who felt that we should have maybe more definition, more parameters around making decisions that might need to stand in place and not change just because it was a different group of people the next week. So I think asking that question, or if you have concerns about that, that's what we want to get back to the subcommittee. I know one of the pieces that I saw that I was concerned about, if we continued in this style of meeting where we met in downtown Denver and at this time of the day and so on and so forth, I think the likelihood of having 50% of our work group be made up of folks from rural or non-Denver metro areas is probably prohibited if we stay in this same style of meeting. So I don't know. I see people shaking their heads. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I concur with what you're saying. I think if you want to include community members, maybe having it in the communities of where we're wanting to serve, and even possibly let's travel and let's go out to the rural area and have a meeting there to accommodate. So yeah.
Okay, great. Kevin, I'm assuming you or Andrew are catching all the notes, right? Okay.
Yeah, Andrew's taking notes, and the only piece of support I would ask for that is that it can be difficult to find meeting locations. So if you all know anybody that would like to host a meeting, please let us know, because we'd love to reach out to them and schedule meetings out in the community.
Great. Any other?
I just want to point out that you've had 2 other people into the room, so I didn't know at what point you wanted to integrate them.
Right. Anything else relative to this draft?
Not related to the draft, but Dana said that they would be happy to host us in Garfield County, so.
Very good. Thank you for that, Dana. Good. All right. Okay, what we will do then is get these notes and ideas or thoughts that people have mentioned. We'll get these back to Megan so she can share with her subcommittee. Yes, go ahead.
I guess I'll offer one comment.
Okay.
Under what it means to be a member, it states no more than 3 members from a specific field. We might perhaps need a list of fields. I know down below there are some current things being drafted. Understanding what different fields there are would be helpful. And I know that's been created for other documents.
Okay. I guess one other thing that I would throw out, we're at the governing council level, there's a lot of discussion right now and work being done on what does membership look like going forward for the governing council. So there's a lot of elements in play. I may be wrong. I'm going to look to our consultants who've been part of this from day one, but my concern about these kinds of structures and requirements is that I came into the work group with the thought that anybody who has an investment in food security or food insecurity in our state and in every community, that this was the place to really insert your experience and your knowledge and your passion. So I guess I just would like to throw out that I'm concerned that if we go a route that makes work groups so restrictive, we lose the opportunity to have that level of both investment in the blueprint as well as the benefit of others' knowledge and experience. You know, the governing council is going to be very structured with terms and all of that, but I would just ask us to think about whether we need to make our work groups exclusive versus very inclusive.
Yeah, can I offer a perspective on that? And Gordon, I really appreciated your question.
Turn your mic on, please.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Sorry, thank you for the reminder. And sorry, for those of you who couldn't hear me on the phone, this is Kee Powell, and I guess I wanted to offer some perspective on that, and I had said that I appreciated Gordon's question because I think there's a balance there, definitely, of having as many voices in the room, right, to solve a problem, and I think that's incredibly important for the problem that we're attempting to tackle here. And I think that it's incredibly helpful to have consistency of participation, and in part because then you're following the story, right? And there's not the, you know, like catching up that I think sometimes happens when we have inconsistent participation. And so I think having an expectation that we welcome as many community members to come and participate in the meeting is different from defining membership. Or does that make sense? Like, those are not mutually exclusive concepts. And so I guess I would say, for me, having greater clarity on who the 15 members are is important. And part of describing who those 15 members are, I think, goes back to Mark's question of, if we can't have more than X number of people from a specific field as those voting members, if we don't define what that is, then we're likely going to be at odds with that, is what I assume. And also, I like the idea of having clarity on who the 15 members are, so that I think we can expect some level of commitment, right? And therefore a level of consistency in the type of work that this group is attempting to do. So that would just be something that I would offer. I am coming to the first meeting today as an observer. I assumed that work group membership was already defined. And so if that hasn't been defined, I think it's a great opportunity for the group to come together and figure out what those fields are and who those 50 members might be, because I think they carry a wonderful and great responsibility. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would just like to add also, it says 15 members. Is that number set in stone?
That's a great question.
And where did that number come from? And maybe we should think about what an ideal number of voting members should be if 15 is not that number.
Great. Anybody else? Oh, very good.
I just wondered if any of the other work groups have fleshed out some of the stuff that we could borrow?
Erin, is that something, or Cindy, Khadijah, can you all answer that? Kevin?
Do that, if that's okay. So no, they haven't. Most of the other work groups have gone straight towards like the strategy prioritization that we're going to do in the second half of the meeting. So they've kind of skipped over this process, and I guess we'll see how that works out. But each of the work groups has their own different kind of approach, and we hope to later evaluate those to see what worked and what didn't, so that we can make them uniform across the work groups if that's what works best.
I want to make a comment relative to inclusion and equity and diversity. Nobody wants to be the Black person in the room. So I say that because nobody wants to be the representative of this type of organization. There is not an individual who can appropriately really represent an entire group of people. So when you begin to look at silos or representation, while it can be helpful in being a reminder of inclusion, it actually can be deceiving in believing that because Gordon is here, he is in a position to speak for an entire community, or that Andrew can speak for an entire community. So I would just have you be thoughtful about that as you think about those definitions.
Anyone else?
So Khadijah, can I just ask a clarifying question then? This is Kei again. I think that I had just assumed that these were requirements, and are we suggesting then that like the number from the specialized fields are not requirements and they're open to discussion? And maybe that is not your responsibility to answer that question. So whoever might want to answer that question.
You know, we have not had a requirement. Again, this work started out with whoever has an interest, this is your time and how you can be involved in some part of the blueprint. But to be fair, this has been it's hard to tell who's here and who's not. I mean, there are some faces that show up every single time, and you know, like yourself, you said, oh, I'm just here to observe, or I'm crashing the party or whatever today. And my response to you was, no, this is the place you're supposed to be, because this is the table where people can express and speak for themselves, if not for a whole group of other people. So it hasn't been that. But at the last meeting, there was expressed some frustration about not having that consistency that you also mentioned, that, you know, it's hard to say, are the priorities that some group of people set or identified in December, are those still the priorities of a group that is 2/3 different from the group of people who were there in December? And I think that's why there was, let's see if we can even discuss this and come up with a better way.
Can I just... Thank you. Okay, so I'm Leah Sullivan, and so very similar. I'm also kind of crashing the party today. I'm stepping in as a representative. Just so, looking at the attendance expectations, and just as I'm kind of reading through this, and again, this is my second meeting here, maybe establishing like excused absence versus non-excused absence, and then from there looking at if you are non-excused and you are on the executive board or a member, at what point does that become, okay, we need to relook at this and maybe change our membership? Because I completely understand revolving door, and obviously the more entities that we all have that are very involved, the better. But if we're now looking at 15 key members that are completely representative, at what point is their vote, like, should that be taken out, and should we look at additional members? And to start doing that, I really think just historically, I've gone through this in other boards or projects that I've worked on, is what constitutes an excused absence versus a non-excused absence for those true voting members. So maybe establishing that criteria, just my 2 cents.
Okay, other thoughts, suggestions?
Yeah, this is Gordon again. I think that with a year of a minimum commitment, that 15 voting members, that number comes out to be, that I think that we would just ask for the commitment to either be here in person or on the phone. I mean, wherever you're at in the world with technology the way that it is today, you should be able to be here, or you should be able to have a representative here. And I think that if that's not the case, then maybe you're not really committed to this. And I mean, I really like the idea of everybody being welcome to this meeting, but I think we really do need to decide on who are going to be the core voting members. I mean, we'll take everybody's thoughts, everybody's discussion. I think that that's great that we stay inclusive that way. But I think that to get work done, we really do need to have a core number of members that would vote to make decisions to move stuff forward.
Can you? We can hear you, but the people on the phone can't.
My apologies. This is Karan Porter. I was just saying that I agree with Gordon, because if you don't have people actually here focused that are committed to the work, then we're just going to be having meetings after meeting after meeting.
Okay, Wendy.
To keep the snowball rolling. This is Wendy. And yes, I think I'm going to ditto to what Gordon and Karan expressed, that it seems like if you're going to be here now. But that could include sending a representative. But I think some of the tension here is that, and I tried to express this a bit to Megan, I think I did it poorly, is that it seems really hard to get something, to your point on, it's very, very structured when it's not really, really clear exactly what we're doing yet and what the responsibilities are. So it seems like if we could define, and we have the two broadest and totally sometimes unconnected goals that got connected of any work group. So it just feels like this is still really hard for all of us. And so it seems like there needs to be some clarity that right now, the work group might be like, we need to be clear about what those expectations are right now, and it might look different later, but right now we need to get some clarity about what the heck we're doing. And it is a very process-oriented right now, right? And that's not exciting for a lot of people. But if we could define right now what being a member is we've got to like hammer out some priorities. And if you want to be here, that means your representative does have to be here, and we expect to be done in 6 months with this, whatever, give it a timeline. But then I think this other huge issue of engaging so many other voices that need to be at this table will be easier when we know what those are. If we have like 3 clear areas, like these are the areas we really need to move within these goals, that's going to excite people, that's going to feel relevant. Then we know what heck community are we even going to? Who are we missing, right? Who needs to be here? So I just think if we can kind of clarify those phases and understand that we are still totally norming and forming right now, it might be easier to kind of get to some structure. And my guess is maybe that's why some other work groups didn't do this first, so they don't know what they're building around.
This is Sharita Hadnal, and I agree with that 100%. That is exactly what my issue is that I need more clarification on what exactly our responsibility is, because the last conversation that I heard on the call that I was on, there was some comments in regards to a plan that had already been put forth about summer food program, and then there was some talk about some possible other thoughts that people had around increasing SNAP enrollment and things like that. And I'm just trying to understand, I guess I don't even know, how they're pulling this work together. Like, if they're going to outside community members and doing assessments and then saying, this is the work plan that based on what we've heard, and are you all okay with this? Do you approve this? Like, once we get together outside of these meetings, I don't understand what our meetings will be for. Like, are we going to be reviewing people's roadmaps and their activities and saying this makes sense, this is leading into what the people said in the blueprint that they wanted to see happen in Denver? I'm trying to get to the point where I understand what our actual regular functions after we figure out voting and all of that is concerned. When I meet with you all, what our specific purpose will be each time we meet. Is that going to be that every time we're going to be reviewing a plan and giving suggestions or asking questions, or what is the purpose, and how are we getting to the point of the actual suggestions that came up in the blueprint, and making sure those activities people are proposing are actually going to do that.
Right. And I believe this might be a good segue into the remaining agenda item for today. I guess last comment I would make is, Aaron, I think, and Kevin, if you all can help us take the message back to the governing council, that while they're trying to figure out what the heck they're doing and what the structure is, we also need some guidance from the governing council as well. So now that Karan has her mouth full, You came in, would you introduce yourself and tell us who you're with and your favorite summer fruit or vegetable? We'll let you chew and swallow.
Sure. Hi, I'm Erin Pulling. I'm with Food Bank of the Rockies. I think I'll say arugula.
Arugula.
We like growing in our garden, and it, even after the winter, it's still good.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Karan Porter, community member, Ghetto Fresh. My favorite summer fruit is watermelon.
Well, you have a whole bunch of colleagues here who also love watermelon, but I think the vote is still out for Palisade Peaches. Okay, the next thing, I will, Kevin and Andrew will get the information back to Megan and her subcommittee. We will hope that the governing council might provide us with some guidance between now and the next meeting. And this is just tabled for the short term. Everybody in agreement? We've only ever voted on one thing, so everybody in agreement with that process, thumbs up. Can't live with it, thumbs down, don't care. Oh, I saw that. Okay, no, I'm teasing you. Okay, next thing in your packet is a draft, and it's underscored, draft work plan. I think that somebody said, oh, we're far ahead of the game because here we are with the draft work plan today. And my response was, well, that's good since we've been so far behind all the other work groups. I'm glad we're finally ahead. And in response to the last meeting, I took the blueprint, and thank you, Kevin or Andrew or whoever made all these copies. In your packet, you also have just the little summary sheet that talks about goal 2 and 3. Work group 2 and 3 is dedicated to that. So I took those, I took the information from the earlier meetings, specifically the one where we supposedly identified some priorities that nobody remembered, and looked at all the other notes from other meetings and discussions that we've had. Started with a draft. I really want to thank Tim and Wendy and Helen for giving some feedback. They ran up and volunteered after the last meeting and said, oh, well, we'll look at whatever you come up with. So I appreciate all the comments and the additions and so on and so forth. This is not a work that's done by any means. It's a place for us to start a discussion today. So anyway, what you will see here, and if you look at this handout, for those of you on the phone, it's the one that is Colorado Blueprint to End Hunger, and it has work group number 2, 3 goals. What I tried to do, because I can't help myself, this is my way of being in the world, is to separate out what looked like to me from the work group, from the blueprint, those things that look like desired outcomes. And so that's where you'll see the desired outcomes here to increase the number of Coloradans who can access affordable, nutritious food in their communities. It's everything in this dark section right here. And the second desired outcome that we're looking for is increasing the number of Coloradans who can access food assistance and nutritious food through community-based operations. That's what we really want to achieve by the end of 5 years. Does everybody kind of agree with that? Oh, well, there we go. And let's have a little interlude. We'll stand. Sit down. All right.
It's running green. Right. Go down, Kevin, with your, yeah, there we go. Okay. Our vision is to.
Our vision is the stated vision of the blueprint, which is the top dark there. All Coloradans have access to affordable and healthy food in their communities. That's the vision. So I'm going to look at people who were on the original blueprint steering group Is that right? And are we stating that correctly? Okay. And then those work group 2, 3 goals then become the outcomes of what we're looking for. And then if you turn to the next page of that, there are 3 little bullet points of where we need to go. So for purposes of trying to figure out what the heck we're doing, I call those goal 1, goal 2, and goal 3. And the way they're stated is exactly the way they're stated on this piece of paper. Then, if you look at the bottom, there's like a laundry list of things, how we get there. Some of those things, you know, if you happen to be one of those people who gets off on goals and objectives, are stated more like objectives that we're working toward. Other things look like activities to do to get to those objectives, and some of those things look like maybe milestones. So it's kind of a compilation of a lot of thoughts and ideas. I love that Cindy keeps smiling at me. I'm encouraged to keep going because of that. All right. So what I did was to just, sort of not arbitrarily, but I tried with some thought here to sort of divide those out into activities. In other words, things that we would do, that we can do, and then how we would know that we're making progress toward those goals and objectives and ultimately the desired outcomes. Tim came back in and made a lot of suggestions, but one of the things that he suggested is that we begin to kind of think about what are the mechanisms that would get us there. So there are certain things that the only way we can get there is if there are changes in public policy. There are changes in systems, which I believe is the whole point of your report that you gave right at the beginning, is that there are system changes, policy changes that we have to see put into effect. There are also things that can happen because we just do a lot of education and work with local communities who know what to do in their community and are willing to do it. And they might need some funding and financing to get it done, but there's also funding and financing needed maybe around those bigger systemic issues as well. So did I explain that kind of along with your thinking, Tim?
Yes, Donna, you did. My effort was just super rudimentary. I just wanted to, I was just faced with this big list of items, and I just, for my own sake, I needed to divide them up into, I just needed to categorize them, because some are all about, government programs, WIC and SNAP and so forth, and other things are about, the things that require financing, and other things are about education. And so my attempt was just to kind of categorize them. So once again, I wasn't trying to change any of them or suggest new ones or anything. It's just kind of directionally, where do we go?
And then Wendy, being who she is, says, well, there's a lot of stuff already happening. And yes, we do know there's a lot of stuff already happening. I personally don't know, and that's why that whole column is empty for the most part. And hopefully our collective knowledge, we can begin to flesh out what's currently happening. And then we need to prioritize. Are there things that we can do in the next 90 to 120 days? And when I say we, I don't necessarily mean just work group 2, 3, but, there's a whole army of people who are engaged in the blueprint. But, just to help us really decide what is the right timing about things. If you're on the phone, please mute. We can hear people talking in the background. So the I is for immediate, again, 90 to 120 days, perhaps. M might be after the second year or in the second year, and then ongoing would be, we need to be doing it today all the way up till the last day 5 years from now. So this is just a draft. I don't know how much money it takes. Some of us may be able to figure that out, and some of us might not. If you will turn to page 3 is goal 2. And then on page 5, I really apologize for people who are working so hard on getting information regarding programs out. There just wasn't a lot to go from in the documents that I had, so I'm really hoping some of you are
Sorry to jump in.
really
Before we-
fleshing out.
Before we move off that first sheet, I think it's very difficult to address bullet point number 1 without identifying the geographic areas that we're talking about, or some commonly understood definition of what does that even mean. I asked for that at one of the original meetings, and I really don't think we can move any further on that bullet point until we have some idea of what we're even talking about geographically.
Excellent. And that's just what we're going to break into small groups and talk about. There's 3 questions to the facilitators that I'd like for you to help facilitate. What's missing from this draft? And it may never look like this, but this is just a working document for us and our work group. Maybe in the long term, we just hand it over to Erin and she comes up with a way to handle everything, because everything is just possible, right? And so the first question, facilitators, what's missing from the draft work plan? Fill in the blanks, or at least begin to fill in some of the blanks. Your questions, what are the questions that we don't have answered? That's the number 1 thing. Secondly, can we begin to flesh out the current status? Who, what, where are things happening that relate to goal or to work group 2-3? And then finally, other suggestions. It was sort of intimated in the discussion 10 minutes ago that we might need to have some conversation with other work groups to know what they're working on. Sharita brings up a good point in a discussion that she was part of. We heard from some of the other work groups, some of the action items they're working on. Do those relate to what we might need to, or think we need to do in 2-3? How can we communicate with those other work groups and have a better integration of the efforts that we're making? So questions about the 3, sort of what we'd like to come out with here in the next 40 minutes. So Cindy and Khadijah and Wendy have agreed to facilitate the people here in the room. Kevin is going to facilitate folks on the Zoom, on the phone call. So let's have whoever's we're gonna tackle these initially goal by goal, or 1 goal at a time. So let's put goal 1, if you're interested in commenting on goal 1 over here. We'll put goal 2 over, goal 3 over here, and goal 2 over here. Facilitators, if you get through your assigned goal and all these questions and people want to move to another goal, feel free to do that. Questions? All right, you're going to dance your way over to a group and participate. Thank you.
Going to over here. I'm 3 here. Right here.
Is someone still with the people on the phone?
We're here, but.
Yeah, I think Kevin was just moving us over.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it just got really quiet.
I can hear you.
Great, thanks. Sorry about that. Let me pull up over here. So the thing is, the groups in the room each have their own specific goals, but they left it up to us to choose which one we would like to work on. So I'll just pull up the document here on my computer and we can talk through that. So 1 second. I know a lot of you are on just the phone, so we'll try and vocalize what we're talking about. So we have goal 1 is ensure that all Coloradans can access affordable, healthy, and nutritious food in every neighborhood and community. Goal 2 is to ensure that all Coloradans can access food assistance and nutritious food when needed through community-based programs. And then goal 3 is regarding ensuring that information regarding community-based food assistance and food programs is easily accessible to and informed by consumers and community stakeholders. So out of those 3 goals, does anyone have one that they would really like to focus on today? Any suggestions?
This is Stephanie, Kevin. I really like 1.
Number 1? Okay. And that is regarding ensuring that Coloradans can access food in their communities.
Yes.
Does anyone else have an opinion?
Kevin, this is Amy. I don't have an opinion on this, but I want to make sure I'm on the right document. The document we're working off of was sent to us.
So this one was, it did not get finalized in time. Can you, so I can send this out.
That'd be perfect because I'm not on Zoom, but I am at my computer now and could pull it up.
Sure, of course. Is anyone else on the phone that would like to have it sent to them?
I can't pull it up right now.
I'd like it
Stephanie?
to send it to me. I'm having technical difficulties. This is Juanita.
Who's this on the phone?
Juanita?
Okay.
I'd like it.
Anyone else? What's your name? Sorry.
Khalid Morris.
Khalid? Okay. Thanks, Khalid.
This is Justin from Chaffa. I'd love a copy.
That'd be great.
Justin from Chaffa. Not sure I have your email. I'll have to pull that up.
And sorry, I talked over Justin. This is Heidi. Would you mind sending it to me as well, Kevin?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. Sorry, Justin.
Oh, you're fine. And it should be the same, similar to Tim Dolan's email. It's jvaust, JVAUSE at Chaffa Info.
Okay. Thanks, Justin.
Sure.
Anyone else? Okay, give me 1 second. We'll get that sent out to you. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay. And for everyone else, I can share my screen if you're on your computer, and we should be able to see it that way. Okay, so the email just went out.
This is Amy. I got it.
Okay. Okay. All right, so I believe you all should have gotten an email by now, and if you're able to pull up the document. So I have, I'm sharing my screen here as well for those of you on your computer. So given that, does anyone else have an opinion about which goal that they'd like to focus on the phone today? And Justin, for some reason, I keep getting an error when I'm sending it to you. Would you mind spelling out the last part of your email?
J, and then it should be V as in Victor, AUSE at CHFAINFO.com.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I was putting .info. Okay. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So Khalid said he's good with 1 or 3. Does anyone else have a?
I'm good with 1. This is Dana.
Go ahead, Dana.
I just said that I'm good with going over goal 1.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we'll move forward with that one. So we had 2, or actually 3 objectives related to goal 1 written here. So the first one is to increase the number of Colorado neighborhoods and communities that have successful and sustainable food delivery systems in place. Second is to increase accessibility to affordable and healthy food by enrolling eligible Coloradans in SNAP, WIC, and other government-sponsored food programs. And that's probably one where we'll have to keep in mind what Workgroup 4 is doing, because that's an increasing SNAP and WIC workgroup. And then the third objective that we have under that goal is to reduce food access barriers in underserved communities by maximizing transportation supports, increasing community access points, and financing local agriculture and fresh food options. So we can start with the first one, which is to increase the number of Colorado neighborhoods and communities that have successful and sustainable food delivery systems in place. Looking through these strategic mechanisms, is there anything missing here? So Donna had listed public policy and systems, education and community engagement, and funding and financing. Are there any other mechanisms that you all think are missing?
This is Amy. I guess one thing that I'm a little bit confused about on this one is because, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump down to 2.
Go ahead.
Not include like the charitable distribution network, because it doesn't say anything. It just says successful and sustainable food delivery systems in place. What do we mean by a food delivery system? Let's start there. Because I mean, to me, when we do a mobile pantry and we are providing free food to 200 families in a mobile home community, that's a food delivery system, but I'm not sure if that's what we're talking about here.
Okay, and I'd kick it back out to the group. So for you all, what does a food delivery system look like? So Amy had suggested a mobile food pantry, but does anyone else have any ideas about what that could look like? Because I think it's completely up to us. It's wide open. So.
This is Stephanie. For me, you know, in the metro area, we have people like the major grocers and Walmart that actually have a food delivery system. However, there is a cost related to that, which may be prohibitive. So I'm not sure if that's even something that is viable.
Okay. We have private grocers that could be potentially a part of that solution.
This is Dana. I would also say that mobile lunch and mobile breakfasts for school districts.
Yeah, Meals on Wheels. And Meals on Wheels for elderly.
Great.
Oh, Volunteers of America also has that for the elderly.
Okay.
All I meant by that is, for a strategic mechanism, do we include charitable food distribution? Because to me, we do. There's all kinds of ways that the Charitable Food Network delivers food.
The question is, but when we put in the word sustainable, I'm sorry, did I step on somebody? I apologize. When we put in the word sustainable, which is always scary when we're talking about charity, right? Because, or when we're talking about nonprofits. I get a little nervous unless there's a way to mechanize funding forever for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that there's like also the mobile food banks, like Food Bank of the Rockies has these mobile sites, and they've been around for a very long time. But I can understand the concern because there may be other entities that may go year to year to funding, and who knows if they'll be around in the 5 years.
Okay.
This is Juanita.
So I'll put that as another bullet point. Sorry, that how do we ensure that these are sustainable?
Right. I mean, part of our challenge is to ensure they're sustainable.
Right.
I would say.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. However, none of us has a crystal ball, and we don't even know what's going on. You know, what happens at the federal level, that impacts everybody locally. So I think it's a lofty goal, and I appreciate it, but I'm not sure if we can guarantee that.
And Juanita, I think you wanted to say something.
And so I agree with all of that. Right now, we rely wholeheartedly on my dinosaur van to pick up food, and then during the winter months to deliver it to different senior residences that can't come out. But we try to get those seniors to get out of their house during the warmer months, which I haven't seen one yet, but we can only do that as long as our van lasts. And since we don't know what type of funding, I mean, this program, BES, every year in November, I drink more wine because I don't know if I'm going to get funding in January. So for 17 years, we've always received the funding, but that's not to say that it's always going to be there. So I think we have to have a plan B and even a plan C if things like that happen, especially to the nonprofit food pantries.
I'd say that the nonprofit groups should be included here. But that's only because I don't think that you can look at food delivery as sort of this as something, or look at it from the entity perspective to say, is this group going to be around forever, or is that group going to be around forever? But rather look at it from the source and say, for example, if we're working with farmers, do we have delivery systems that allow farmers to deliver straight to certain communities, or do we have delivery systems for the grocer to deliver straight into certain communities, et cetera, and go from a source perspective and just say, we just want to make sure that there's delivery options rather than, and not necessarily care who's going to fill that particular role, and just make sure that there's just some support in place for whoever's willing to step up to the plate. That's sort of the way I see it.
I agree.
I'd like to second that. This is Heidi, and was that Khalid? I'd like to second that because I think that we're being pretty literal about food delivery systems, meaning kind of that last mile delivery potentially. But in the next column, which I can't read the title of right now, but a lot of the, thank you, thank you. Or actually, I guess in the activities column still, where we're talking about food policy councils and food access coalitions, a lot of those discussions are around what Khalid was talking about, meaning, farmers are talking about how they can work together to actually get food physically to where people are, and stores are talking about distributors that won't distribute to small stores, healthy food, that kind of thing. So I think it speaks to the need for us to really define what we're talking about by food delivery systems. So thank you to whomever that was who brought that up, because that's pretty broad and what we're talking about is pretty specific. And so I think it will depend where we want to focus in terms of what partners and the makeup of the work group. Because if we're talking about a more systemic food delivery, that's one conversation, and identifying assets and needs there is one part of the puzzle. And then if we're talking more granularly about the actual how that gets into people's hands, literally, charitably or by purchase, that's a different conversation, different set of partners, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, and I also want to recognize that, what we maybe can look at here is that we've already kind of started to focus on this asset map that people have talked about. So what kind of delivery systems would be included on that asset map? And we've already started to talk about what might be missing there that wouldn't be included, that would be a gap. So we're getting into that a little bit. I wonder, how does this all resonate with you all? So these activities, we have identified the existing mechanisms across the state. That's kind of what we're doing a little bit of right now. Identify existing food assessments to be utilized, create a blueprint community food assessment to assist communities in determining the gaps and assets needed. And then use a variety of assessment mechanisms to determine the degree to which those fall within the gap of eligible for food benefits and those who are not eligible, but still experience hunger. So when we look over those activities to achieve this overall objective, do those resonate with you all? Is there anything missing or anything that you would change?
This is Dana. I have a question.
Yeah, sorry.
This is Dana. I have a question on developing the, can you scroll down, the community food assessment?
Yeah, of course.
Are you wanting to develop those in every county, all 64 counties? Are you just wanting to identify the ones that are already done? That to me seems like a very lofty goal for 5 years. I don't know if it does to anyone else, but the amount of work it takes to do a community food assessment is years just to develop it. So I don't know, just thoughts on that one. We might want to pare it down a bit.
And this is, I think, where you're looking at this priority time frame, that it's immediate, midterm, or ongoing. And they, so this is all what Donna put together just for your all's review. So keep that in mind, that this is all completely open to interpretation and open to be changed. Okay.
Well,
we have about 10 minutes left, by the way. But so we can make this more long-term, and we could also talk about how do we focus that so it's more feasible as well.
So Kevin, this is Amy. I think some tools exist already to get us to D. The 5 food banks that are part of Feeding America. Feeding America does map the meal gap every year, and map the meal gap identifies what percentage of food insecure individuals are below 185% of poverty, and those that are above, and then between poverty and 130. So, and that's for the entire state. It already exists.
Okay, and who has that assessment? Sorry.
So, it's each food bank has an assessment of their service area, which collectively would be the whole state. So we do the 5 Feeding Colorado food banks in the state.
Absolutely. So I think you'd be looking at those types of assessments and any others that exist, and then realistically we could see if any other gaps are there to see if an additional assessment needs to be done. But I think that's a great point, that it's probably not going to be realistic for the blueprint itself to go across the state and do an assessment, especially if that's not needed and it's been done already well by someone else. So any other thoughts in that activities comment column?
Kevin, since I can't see that, I just wanted to make a comment in general. We're talking about access to food for for all Coloradans, and there is a piece of it that talks about policy change. And currently, you and I have previously had a discussion about how challenging it's going to be to get people who are immigrants, regardless whether their status is documented or undocumented, to continue to apply for these benefits because of the threat.
Sorry, you kind of cut out, Stephanie, but I think you were going to talk about the public charge. I think we lost you. And So yeah, I would absolutely agree. I think that is a huge issue. It might fall more into this 1.2. But what do you all think about ensuring that immigrants have access to benefit programs despite any recent policy changes that may or may not be enacted?
I think this is Heidi. Sorry, this is a great opportunity to partner because there are lots of folks already working on this issue. So maybe our role is more of a connecting role. I know that WIC and SNAP and Hunger Free Colorado and others have, submitted comments, have taken official positions. The governor signed off on the statement that we did with CDHS. And so I'm not sure how, for that issue specifically, it might just be making sure that it's not just across similar agencies, but also across dissimilar agencies, making sure that, Juanita's organization and my organization are on the same page about what we're saying to folks and the kind of outreach that we're doing, rather than creating another messaging or position.
And this is Sarita. Can you all hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
I was trying to make a comment that I think that there needs to be some education. I saw something mentioned in terms of the usage in the actual facilities around, whether it's SNAP or WIC or any of these particular types of programs, and having more inquiry into why certain stores are not utilizing it or do not accept it. And I feel like there needs to be some type of education to places or people that have entities where there's food, whether it's a food bank, whether it's a store, a corner store. There needs to be more education around, how they can utilize it, how they can benefit from it, and then also some community engagement, so there is not so much negative rapport when people come and utilize these things, which is a huge part of the problem, and much more so than in a lot of areas, much more so than lack of access. I said I can't stress enough how the way people are treated. If you go to South Aurora, and if you're not from South Aurora, you can't get that stuff, but there's a vast difference in the types of things that they're getting served in those communities versus what you get down in Denver. And when you go to those places, you're very poorly. There needs to be more education around always getting this funding to assist people in how they engage with community and how they treat people and how they help them. They're terrible about having to be there getting assistance. And I need to see more emphasis around not the people that are in need all the time having to figure it out, or the programs that are already existing, people that are getting this money and are not doing what they're just due.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sharita.
Kevin, it's Stephanie. I lost my connection, so I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. So you were going to talk about public charge, right? And so
right. I don't know where I lost you. I mean, but that is the piece that I think it's even more imperative now that we look at alternate sources for food and not necessarily SNAP and WIC.
Yeah, and I think it was Heidi that suggested that we partner with organizations already working on this, that have been in this space for a bit longer and utilize those relationships. Do you think that would make sense?
I've been one of those people working on that. As well as one of the biggest, the other two was Center for Health Progress and Colorado Center for Law and Policy.
Okay, so is CCLP and what was the first one that you mentioned? Sorry.
Center for Health Progress.
Oh, okay. Is this a space that Servicios has been working in too, Juanita? It might be on mute.
And I know that there's also, we worked on a project before where we worked with a corner store in the old Aurora area in terms of getting the fresh produce in there. And I know that there's been a lot more push around working with, the stores and the gas stations to look at opportunities to leverage funding to help them be able to offer that. And that's another opportunity I know where I'm at. There seems to be a come and go popping up on every corner.
Right.
So
this is
I think that looking at how we can leverage those stores and those corner stores and
right. So we're working with
have your options.
We work with King Supers on 17th and Sheridan. Whenever they have extra product, they always bring it to us and drop it off. On Sunday, can you hear me?
Yeah.
On Sunday, beginning this Sunday, we will be getting all the extra produce from the Highlands Farmers Market, and they bring it by on Sunday afternoon, and then Monday morning, we put it out for the entire community, and they can get as much as they want until it's all gone. So that only happens during harvest time, though, so it's the winter time that we have a little bit of a harder time getting good, healthy, affordable, nutritious food to our clients. But with summer coming, we call it a Market Monday, and anybody from the community is able to come. We did not get in on this last year, but this year I wanted to get a head start, so I started calling them in September, and we are on the list to start getting food. So if you know anybody in this area, you're welcome to have them. They don't have to call. They just have to show up on Monday morning at Servicios.
Can I
Great,
throw in
thank you,
something
Juanita.
that as a rural perspective on this and kind of a radical thought process? And I don't know where it fits into this. Okay. And it comes from my farmers, or my farmers, the farmers that I work with. I shouldn't say my farmers. Anyway, what about the concept or the idea of having land put aside in areas like the San Luis Valley, where food is farmed for the people of the state, and people are paid to farm, to do, that we start at the source of paying farmers to farm to get to people. Why wouldn't that be something that, I know that it's something that in Boulder that's starting, but why wouldn't we do that around the whole state? Have farms where the funding goes straight to the farmer and then the food is free.
I love that idea.
And where does that fit in this little piece? That you can figure that out? I don't know, but I just keep wanting to say that, it seems like, plus a lot of our farmers, are struggling, so then you're hitting two different sides of this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great idea. I mean, we pay farmers right now for like CRP, crop restoration, just to leave land as like native grasses. So there's obviously been policy set up in different spaces, like environmental. So why not be able to say we can also do policies for something like this to be able to provide fresh food? So we have about 30 seconds left. I have all these notes taken and can go down them, but I was wondering, would anyone like to report out to the rest of the group on the notes that we put together? And I can share my screen and scroll down them, or I can report out for the group. Completely up to you all.
Kevin, this is Amy. I actually need to sign off. My daughter has an 8th grade graduation that I need to get to.
Okay,
So,
no worries.
So I'm going to go ahead and sign out.
Okay.
And I can't, Kevin, because I'm afraid I might lose my connection.
That's okay. Thanks, Stephanie. And Juanita has to sign off as well. Is anyone interested?
This is Heidi. I'm fine with you doing it, Kevin, if you're willing, unless someone else is willing to do it. And I would just ask that we reiterate that any of the stuff that kind of overlaps with Workgroup 4, that we really feel strongly that we need to collaborate with them rather than duplicate that, which I know we talked about. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about that.
Yeah, and we're going to be in a really good space after going into June, as Workgroup 4 is going to be working on their strategies, and they have a survey going about what they'd like to do to increase enrollment and also improve clients' experience in the benefit program. So once we have our information and they have theirs, we're going to have a lot more info about how we can collaborate and work together. But I completely agree with you. I just don't think the work groups have quite yet gotten to that space where we can look at collaboration, but we're going to be there very soon, probably next month. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Kevin.
And yeah, of course. So I will be happy to share out. I'll just request from you all that you fill in anything that I missed. So I'm going to go back in the group, and you'll probably start hearing everyone else very soon. So 1 second.
And that's what you got. Already regularly. And I will, yeah, I'll just shoot you an email. Sure.
Yes.
Maybe one of the other.
Okay, all right, guys, let's get back to our Andrew, would you check Kevin out there, tell him we need him?
He's just run to the bathroom.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's back.
We'll let him go and pick.
Okay, who would like to report out from goal number 1? Tell us what you all talked about. Who's that? Where is goal 1?
Wendy.
Oh, Wendy, are you doing it? Are you talking about goal 1? Erin's doing it? Okay.
Oh, I'm doing it?
No, who is on?
We did not completely follow directions.
And we're shocked.
So we were the Small But Mighty Goal 1 group. Here, should I take this? Sorry. This is Wendy. We're the Small But Mighty Goal. Oh, turning it on. Wendy's talking about the Goal 1 group here. Also, was there anyone that was doing a Goal 1 on the phone?
The folks on the phone, Kevin will
take
us through that process when he gets back.
So we decided we still need to do a little work just on clarifying the actual objectives that belong under Goal 1. So we went back to the very beginning of the very original list of all the Goal 1 and Goal 2 strategies, and just refined and clarified those, and just clarified which ones exactly belong under Goal 1 and not Goal 2, and brought a little clarity to them. So now we have 7, we think, objectives that we do think fall under Goal 1. So we're going to take those, put them into this work plan, and then just circulate that through a work group of the work group, a Goal 1 work group. So I don't know if there's a way to capture that at some point before we leave, but it'd be great to know if there's anyone else that maybe couldn't be with us but wants to be a part of Goal 1, and we wanted to do some email refinement of the work plan with that Goal 1 group.
Perfect. Great. Anything else from the Small and Mighty Goal 1 group that you want to add in? Did she get it?
This is Alexis. I'll add in, not specific to Goal 1, but one thing we were talking about, we just had a very small group there, but we were saying one other responsibility for work group members in general should probably be taking on working with our networks, making sure we're connecting with those out in the community who may not be able to be in this room at these meetings, but having those conversations in between meetings, bringing that information back to ensure that our reach is really much farther than beyond this room. So.
Fabulous. I love that. I heard some already volunteering that is going to happen around Goal 1, and believe me, I wrote that down. Okay, Goal 2.
Thank you. We had really great discussion, and we've captured some notes here, which I will just recap quickly for all of you. So we started out with some things that we thought we might want to include, so some items that were maybe missing where some more information or some clarification would be helpful. So some information around measurements, and if we're really going to measure increases, what's our starting point and how will we know what growth looks like? So understanding a little bit more about that. There was some discussion about how do we best understand the communities. If we're looking at community-based organizations, what does the community desire to have as part of that community, and what does that look like? Understanding the need for food now. So I think we've had some discussion about folks who are eligible for SNAP but not enrolled. What's the larger universe of folks for whom food could be really helpful in their lives? What does that look like? Who falls in the gap of existing programs? And thinking about how community-based organizations can support that work. We took a little bit of a stab at sort of current status and captured some of the things that are happening. So we've got a list of some of that. I think we can expand on that as we move forward. And some of the other conversations that came out of that were some of the barriers that folks are working on in terms of current projects and things that are still keeping us from supporting everyone's food within communities. We did have a conversation tangential to the gaps and the status piece about the process of how this group comes together and how we move this work forward as a work group, and having as a consistent agenda item and maybe very consciously every 6 months, revisiting the conversation around who else would we like to have at this table, how is the representation of this group meeting our goals, just make that sort of a regular agenda item so that we are constantly asking ourselves those important questions as the work moves forward. Who else can we involve? What else makes sense? Who else needs to be working on these projects, and sort of making that a regular agenda item. And then we had some sort of broader, we would have loved more time, as we always do in these meetings, and we all have other things we need to do. But we had some great discussion and comments and suggestions that we'd love to add some activities, think about key partners and what capacity they might have now and what we might need to do to help them increase their capacity. So is that funding, is that staff, is that collaboration? As we think about collaboration, how do we actually make that function? So for those of us who have been doing this work for some time, we always talk about working together. And in my experience, that does not happen as often as we might like it to. So how do we actually operationalize some of this collaboration that really is at the heart of this blueprint work, and what does that look like? And then how do we think about sustainability for communities? So how do we help create projects that will live beyond the life of this 5-year blueprint? How can we help folks adopt and incorporate the things that make the most sense for them, and sort of what's the longer term view, even out beyond the blueprint? Anything folks want to add to that quick summary? Yes, Mark.
I would say on those last two, the collaboration and sustainability, we also talked about systems change, making sure that it actually is a change that sticks.
Thank you. Anybody else from the group want to chime in? Okay, great.
Great, thank you. Who's going for goal 3? Oh, go ahead, thank you.
Thank you. So for goal 3, and this is key for those of you on the phone, first off, we did also start with reviewing the 3 separate goals and trying to understand and distinguish between what was covered in each goal. And I think that one recommendation I might have for this group is I think that's a healthy activity to probably do all together. So while it sounds like group 1 did that, I don't know if your interpretation was the same as our interpretation. So that might be a thing. But to that end, what we decided on was we believe that goal number 3 is really about having information about where community-based food assistance and food programs are or that exist, having that information and then making sure that it meets the objectives as outlined. So our first or immediate objective was to be able to take stock or ensure that that information exists. It's our understanding that Hunger Free Colorado, and I think Helen mentioned this, has that information, but we also wanted to be able to kind of get our hands on it, look at it, and see if it was sufficient and captures all the things that we believe it should capture. The other thing we wanted to do with that information was also use it to examine where geographic gaps might exist in our community, where food programs may not actually exist, right? And those might give us opportunities for communities that we may want to specifically target with this information. In addition to that, we also thought taking stock not only of the information of where those programs are or what they are, but also the kinds of modes of communication that are being used in order to share this type of information. So Hunger Freeze Hotline is one mode of communication, but how else are we attempting to share this out in the community? We thought would be an important thing for us to kind of gather. Along with that, when we discern where those communities are, where there might be gaps, trying to, I think, Gordon, you had this suggestion, trying to understand who might be important community thought leaders, right? Because they might be very strategic in helping us get that information out in that specific community. So that's another thing as maybe a more medium-term solution that we might try to address. Within the goal number 3, you can see there are lots of adjectives that describe the work. And I think that once you have the information and you think it's the right information, ensuring that that information, part of the objectives would be ensuring the information is accessible, that it is easily understood, that it is community informed, and that it is culturally responsive. And I think that those were the components of what we discussed.
Great. Anything else from group 3? Okay, Kevin, your group?
Yes, thank you. I was on the phone out in the lobby. And so since you all each had one of the goals, we decided to go through them and see which ones they wanted to work on. And we ultimately focused on 1.1 and 1.2. Oops. So we went into each of these activities and talked through them a little bit more. For identifying existing mechanisms, we listed some that already exist. So there's mobile food pantries, private grocers, mobile lunch and breakfast, Meals on Wheels, Volunteers of America, and charitable food networks. But most importantly, we were wondering, which has been brought up before, but if we're working on these, how do we ensure that they're sustainable beyond the blueprint? And to talk about that, we thought, what kind of delivery systems are in place that really get food from the source directly to people? So we're talking about farmers and grocers. I believe it was Dana, correct me if I'm wrong, but had an idea, what if there was some sort of program set up in place that pays farmers just to put aside some fields to grow food for eligible individuals that would be free? Keeping down the list for community food assessments, we specified that to do an assessment in each community could take years. These are really long assessments, and how can we leverage existing assessments? So Amy had mentioned that each food bank does an assessment for the area that they currently serve that could be utilized. And then going down, and then we talked about SNAP and WIC. One thing that Sharita mentioned was that education needs to be given to locations that offer food to ensure that they know that they can accept benefits or how benefits can be accepted and utilized. So we specifically talked about like grocery stores and gas stations as locations that could receive education. And then finally, talking about some of the reasons that people might not be using those benefits, but there is a lot of discussion around public charge and why immigrants might not be using SNAP, WIC, or other government programs, and that there's organizations already working on that we could partner with, and 2 that were mentioned, these might not be all, but were CCLP and the Center for Health Progress. So I know a few of the people on the phone had to sign off for other meetings, but did I miss anything that we might have talked about? Okay.
No, you did a really good job, Kevin.
Thanks.
Great. So a lot of thought today. My question is, now what? We have 8 minutes to say what comes next. Wendy and her group have actually said they're going to take on a responsibility of doing some more work on their goal. Wendy said she'll take the key responsibility for that. Other groups, what do you have in mind, or anybody else willing to step up with your group and add some more? Kevin already kind of did his group, lucky for them. What about 2 and 3?
I guess,
a question for me would be, will this be revisited on the agenda next time, such that essentially, like, this is great and work, and what are we going to do with it? So if an immediate goal from group 3 was we need to take stock and get that information from Hunger Free, and then let's come back next time and revisit it, is there going to be an opportunity for us to do that at the next work group meeting?
This is just my thought. My thought is if groups go back and flesh out from what you did today, absolutely, we're going to come back and revisit and then make some decisions about, are we going to, other work groups have selected 1 or 2 items that they wanted to personally, as a work group, take on, and have gone to the governing council and basically asked for funding to pursue that. That may be a direction we would want to go. Maybe we want to take on more than 1 or 2 things. But from my mind, we need to flesh out what we did today and add the other things that people come up with, and then come back and spend a lot of our time next week or next month going forward. Other thoughts about that?
Yes, and this is Wendy. Oh, thanks. I'm wondering, to key to your point about we all kind of went and did our own little thing, it was really apparent to me in those report backs that we're all defining some of these goals and strategies still differently. So the folks on the phone, for example, talked about SNAP and WIC enrollment, which is actually what group 4. And SNAP incentives are still stuck under 2, but they should be under 1. Healthy food incentives. So I'm just wondering, since we're all going to do these things, is there one person or entity that can actually take what we're each doing and bring some cohesion to it and just really clarify? And also, like, the folks on the phone, and I'm totally not picking on the folks on the phone. I think you're revealing like what everyone's struggling with. There was a lot of objective 1.1 talk about what is actually community food assistance programs, which is goal 2, not goal 1. Or now we're calling them goal 1 and 2, but they're actually goal 2 and 3 of the work group, of the blueprint, sorry.
Yeah. Maybe rename,
Yes, totally. So I think someone's going to take all this and bring some real clarity into like that goal. The work group goal is really around community food assistance programs, right? Everything that's not a federal food assistance program. And the other one is about making community food environments healthier and stronger, right? And none of this is about SNAP and WIC enrollment. So someone needs to take all this feedback from all of us and make sure it all makes sense, is I guess is what I'm saying. Does that make sense? Who does that?
Probably me. Still to be defined, but I'm happy to work with each one of the groups. If you can just loop me into that communication, and then I can work with Donna and Sharita to consolidate it all.
Perfect. So that we're not doing exactly what you pointed out. Like we're each defining it differently.
Oh, no, I think that's the right thing to do, for sure.
Good.
This is just my perspective. It would be very helpful to start by testing and focus on a assumptive area of need geographically, and then like just to make it more real, like actually identify a community, and then we can test assumptions, learn, get into data, right? We just have this fundamental lack of data at this point. So if we just shrunk it down to a known community, and then I think you'd start to get the wheels turning a little bit more. You could extrapolate what's working, what's not, what has a broader impact across the state. I think it's going to be really hard to do that unless we focus on one or a group of communities that exhibit, paramount need. I think we're just going to spin our wheels a little bit.
There was a couple comments from people on Zoom. So Dana, I think this was a few minutes ago, but she said that I agree and think some action items should be assigned to folks/organizations at the next meeting. And then Heidi said that she agrees with Wendy. Clarity and connection would be great. Is this the asset mapping we talked about doing originally when the work group convened? Maybe everyone should be responsible for filling in their current work by each action item. And I would say one thing with that is that we've taken, that we can share out in follow-up email, but we've taken the asset maps from each of the work groups and we've kind of put them in one large asset map that can be sorted by what category that they fit into, which we can share out. And then people can take a look at that and add in what their organization might be doing that's not already listed. But if there is anything else that we be helpful immediately from us, please let us know.
Great. So Erin, would you be so kind as to now reframe what you think is going to happen next, what you're suggesting happens next?
Sure. So it sounds like at least one of the goal groups that met today, the like mini goal groups, I'll call them mini goals for right now, is going to be reconvening. So I'm happy to either facilitate that or just be part of that, and then make sure that I'm participating in each one of those mini goal groups to make sure that information is coordinated and we're appropriately defining all of the goals, mini goals and objectives.
And then do we have that same kind of volunteering for whoever was in this group here and that group over there?
I can help with this group over here.
Okay, great. And I'll be happy to help you with that. What about the mighty, no, it was this group with Cindy. Anybody willing to help on that a little bit? I'll work with you. Who was in this group?
I'll help.
All right, great. Okay, great. Thanks. All right, wonderful. Any last thoughts about process before we do our very last thing?
Can I just ask a clarifying question then? So Erin, I heard you say that what you heard from that conversation was a commitment from group 1. Now we have a commitment from group 2 and group 3. I also heard from that conversation some suggestions about what would be on the next agenda. So could we clarify, I'm not saying like we're mapping out the 2 hours, but could we clarify like what were some suggestions about the next agenda so that we don't lose those?
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think one major thing that I heard is coming back to this group and making sure that the definitions that we come up with for the mini goals and the objectives are all universal across the board. So I think we have one area or an opportunity to really define, to make sure that that's defined and everybody understands those definitions. And then I think the second opportunity is thinking about the priorities that are listed, making sure that we make some decisions maybe on those at the next meeting, and reviewing the asset map between now and the next meeting, but then reviewing the content of that at our next meeting. But, yeah.
And Sharita, who is the other co-chair besides me, we have Zoom time with Kevin and Andrew, and we'll take all of the suggestions and put together the agenda for the next meeting as well. So if you have agenda items, just do what Wendy did and say, I need to be on the agenda, and let us know that, and we'll make sure you get a minute or 7 on there. I'd like to go, and I know we're just about out of time, I'd like to go around the room rapid fire and everybody say one word that is a reflection of your thoughts and feelings and whatever about today's meeting. And so you can go first.
Direction.
Busy. Powerful. Momentum. Clarification.
I was going to say clarification. Ditto.
Productive.
Progress.
Motivated.
I'm going to say moving.
Partnership.
Movement.
Visionary.
Together.
Progress.
Engagement.
Re-engage.
Collaborative.
Ditto to every word that has come from Ditto.
Better.
Collaboration.
Curious.
Ruben. Khalid, do you have a word?
Quality.
And Ruben, do you have a word? Silence. Okay. Thank you to the facilitators. Thank you to every one of you for all your thoughts and ideas and passion. And a special thanks, as always, to Kevin and Andrew and Trailhead. Thank you. See you next month. Great.